Hello everyone, part 2, Vegas build. So, we're going to do the same thing we just did with Fallout 3, just going to go down the list. So, like I've said, I've always skipped over barter, screw that. Energy weapons, this is actually something I did different in comparison to Fallout 3. I'll explain why in just a few minutes, but I definitely did that instead of small guns, or guns in this case. I did bother with explosives in Vegas, I will explain that as well. Didn't really bother with guns. Explanation soon to come. Same thing as Fallout 3. Didn't really put much of an emphasis on lockpicking. Definitely went medicine. Ignored melee weapons. Didn't really go that far out with repair. I think the furthest I went was 50 in Vegas. Um, I did put some emphasis on science. Completely ignored sneak. Completely ignored speech. Um, I did do some survival and completely ignored unarmed. So, the reason I did things a little bit differently in Vegas in comparison to Fallout 3 is because of the addition of crafting. Now, with the addition of crafting, that did change the weapon game a little bit. It made it very possible to get ammo for really any of these. However, the easiest to get was energy weapons. And not only that, energy weapons were a little bit better, and I'll show you why. So you'll notice I scrolled up, and here's the anti-material rifle, which is the highest damage weapon for the gun category. It does 110 damage. Uses the 50 BMG, but it weighs 20 before modifications, so that's a lot to deal with. Now, let me scroll back down, and I'm going to show you the Gauss rifle. All right, in Vegas, there actually is a unique Gauss rifle, which is easily obtainable if you're careful, because you can get this from, I think it's like a bandit or a mercenary immediately outside of New Vegas. So YCZ 186, look at its damage. It's 140. So that means it does more damage than the weapon we're just looking at up here by a factor of 30. In addition, look at its weight. It only weighs 8 pounds. So this is much easier to carry around at all times for those long range shots. The one downside of the YCZ 186 and the Gauss rifle, though, is the bullet has a much larger hitbox. So you're more than likely not going to get a headshot. You just have to aim center mass most of the time. But it pays off, and this is where I was going with the crafting. So it uses microfusion cells in Vegas. Now, because you can craft in Vegas, there is one type of ammo in here that actually makes this cause more damage further than the base in comparison to the anti-material rifle, and that is this microfusion cell max charge. So you'll notice that with this, it does the highest amount of damage times 1.5 at the expense of 2.5 weapon degradation. But the fact that you can do 1.5 times more is insane. Now, if you want to save on um, the cells and still do a reasonable amount of damage, they later added the optimized, which is 1.3 times and doesn't cause as near as much degradation. Um, yeah, so there's that. The other weapon too that makes energy rifles so incredibly useful in Vegas is Pew Pew, which is a unique laser pistol that actually does 75 points of damage. It does take additional energy shells per shot. So if I remember right, you can only get like 5 shots in if I remember right. In comparison to a normal laser pistol, which um, can do a lot more than that. I think it's 30. Yeah, so it's a significant ammo reserve. But it pays off because it does 75 damage, and also due to the fact it only weighs 3 pounds. As far as laser rifles are concerned, when they did add the expansions, they add the layer, and more specifically Elijah's advanced layer. And this is um, the highest damage rifle in the game. You can compare it to some of the other rifle-based guns, like survivalist rifle, sniper rifle, and all of that. But in the end, the Elijah's Lair will do more damage. So lasers are supreme in Fallout Vegas. So there's my reasoning for that. Um, let's go ahead and move on to the perks so you can kind of see more of where I'm going with everything. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to start from the top. Just like Fallout 3, Swift Learner is here and it is at level 2. So you want to get that as fast as you can. Um, as far as some of this other stuff in here, don't really see use in it. Moving on to level 4. And level 4, the same thing I said about comprehension applies here. Um, Educated, obviously, is here as well at level 4, so that is also important. Just like Swift Learner, you want to take those as early on as possible to achieve the most amount of skills and experience. Um, yeah, and then for level 6, Bloody Mess is back. But I wouldn't worry about it too much in Vegas. That's only if you have a spare perk point. Demolition Expert actually does do something in Fallout Vegas because it does apply to some of the explosive weaponry. Um, so that's kind of why I do some explosives there. As far as the other level 6 stuff, I don't really see a use in it. Um, Unless you're going with a guns build, then obviously you'll need to get hand loader. But otherwise, I wouldn't bother. Um, Shotgun Surgeon is nice if you're going guns, but the problem is the amount of times that you use a shotgun, um, is few and far between, making the perk not really worth the points. Toughness is under there, so that's really good. And then here's the energy weapon thing under level 6. Requires science 70. It allows you to recover drained ammunition, and you're also more efficient at recycling cells at the workbench. So that's why I was saying energy weapons are supreme, because there's no ingredients required. It's literally just whatever is left in your inventory. Whereas with hand loader, in order to make ammunition, you need the primer, the powder, and all this other stuff you have to buy. So it becomes very inefficient very quickly. Um, Moving on to 8. Um, Pack Rat's okay, but I wouldn't put a emphasis on that. Um, Stonewall is, again, same thing that I've been saying since the last recording. Anything to do with damage resistance is always worth it. In this case, it does also prevent you from being knocked down, so that's kind of useful. Um, Strong backs also under there, so you can do that too. Moving on to 10. Finesse is under here, just like the last one, so I would try to get that as soon as you can. Um, as far as the other level 10s, I wouldn't really bother with that. For level 12, there's fast metabolism. Again, like I've said in the last recording, that's definitely worth. And same with Life Giver, but Life Giver, like I said last time, is something I put uh, on a lower priority. Um, think that's it for 12. Let me just double check. Oh, splash damage. By the way, um, people are probably going to say this um, down the road that if you're getting some things in explosives, then why you're ignoring this? It's because the splash damage means a larger area effect, which can be a bad or good thing, but more than likely it's going to be a bad thing. That means the radius is larger, which has a higher chance of hitting you in the process. So I completely ignore that. Moving on to 14, there's Adamantium Skeleton. Um, so there's that. Um, I guess while we're here, I can explain the jury rigging thing. There's a reason I ignore this, is because number one takes 90 repair, um, and number two is because you can create the weapon repair kits pretty efficiently, and if all else fails, you can always find a merchant to repair your stuff. You can just trade in stuff for it if need be. Um, but if you want to make it easier on yourself, I guess you can do that. It's just going to require a different mentality with the build. Um, Moving on. Let's see, that's it for 14. We're moving to 16 now. There's better criticals again. Same thing as last time. If it's paired with finesse, it's definitely important to give you occasional burst damage. And actually in Fallout Vegas, it does tie in with another perk, which I'm sure we'll see here in a couple of seconds. Um, Tag is also here in 16, so I'm okay with that. Um, Weapon handling. Eh, I think some people are going to mention this, but I don't see a use in it. Um, because you're running this is going to be running an energy build, strength requirements are a lot lower, so it's not really important. Moving on to 18, nothing really there. Um, so I would go and spend into some of the other perks from prior. Moving to 20 now. Under 20, there's nothing here. But again, if you're a person that doesn't like stuff spoil for you, if you want to spend a point into Explorer, I guess by all means go for it. Moving into 22. So under 22, this is what I was talking about with finesse and better criticals because you do run to this laser commander. It requires your energy weapons to be at 90. It says you do an extra 15% damage and have a 10% extra chance to critically hit with any laser weapon. So that means by the time that you stack everything, you'll have a 15% chance to crit when using laser weapons. Considering how much you can recycle the ammunition, this is so worth it. Moving into 22. Because you do have science when running an energy build, you can go Nuka Chemist if you wish. Um, that does work with the explosive skill. This will allow you to create the Nuka Cola Grenade, which does an absolute crap ton of damage. So there is that. As far as the other stuff that's down here, not really important. We're going to go ahead and scroll down because um, there is other perks in here. So implant perks. Um, Implants are very expensive, so that does take away from your ability to use merchants for repairs. But if you do manage to um, get into this, um, you can go with a monocyte breeder, which gives you the regeneration, because it does stack with an armor piece in the game. I forget its name right now, but I'll link it in the description just to save on time. Um, if I remember right, luck is the same as the other Fallouts, in which that does increase your chance to crit, so +1 to luck is okay. But I would put more emphasis on subdermal armor because of the damage threshold, which is your damage reduction in Vegas. So that's kind of nice. Moving on to dead money perks. So in here, Junk rounds are completely useless. People tell me that, or at least were telling me back then that you could make use of them. I didn't really see a point in it. Um, the one perk from here that actually does have some use is heavyweight. This is if you're going with a guns build, or at least trying to use the larger weapons, because it does um, reduce the weight of a weapon by half if it is over 10 points. So, if I remember right, the anti-material rifle can be brought down to 7 weight by mods, so it comes down to 13. So then that will reduce even further, allowing the anti-material rifle to be um, a little under 10 pounds. So that can work. Moving on to Honest Heart perks. Um, the Grunt perk does work if you're going with the guns thing. But for the most part, if I were to get this, um, that would be for grenade rifles and launchers, if I were not going guns, because it does benefit those as well, and those do kind of help, at least at lower levels. So this is a perk that I would only get if you know there's going to be spare. Moving on to Old World Blues. Um, Let me see. Implant GRX is an interesting one, but I would only do that if you have spare points. Um, mm, yeah, I don't think there's anything else in there. Yeah. All right, so moving on to Lonesome Road. Um, Around here, there's really not too much to go on, except the karma-based perks. Um, because one of them in here does affect luck, and that will be Just Lucky I'm Alive. That's level 50. Um, but that's, I think, if I remember right, more neutral than, yeah, I think that's the neutral one, yeah. But while that's nice and all, I do prefer a more defensive um, loadout, so I would prefer going with Thought You Died at 50. That's when you have good karma. Um, Karma resets, and you gain 10 health per 100 karma, plus 10% damage, and plus immunity to critical hits. So I do prefer that over the luck um, factor because critical hits are very RNG based, whereas just flat out damage isn't. So this is going to be with you at all times. Even though that Just Lucky I'm Alive does give you plus 50% critical damage, I do think that having that all the time is a much better solution. Um, the Gunrunner's Arsenal perk. Mad Bomber. This is the reason I did go up to 50 repair is because this is how you would create Nuka-Cola grenades and a few other things that do help you out. So I'm okay with that. All right, so there you have it. There's the list of perks, everything else. I hope I did good with the part two. If there's any questions I can answer, please let me know. Thanks for listening.